All right, welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is Sound Off, and I am Mr. Sound Off. In this podcast here, this is going to be our power rankings for Week 5 of the NFL season. That's right, we are already into Week 5. We are already now into October for the season itself. We got MLB playoffs going on, which is fun too. But this video here, this is going to be about our power rankings. Hope you guys also like the weekly picks, the baseball picks, doing other videos as well. Started incorporating some different things in the weekly picks, with also including in some betting lines, those kind of things there, covering the spreads, talk about locks of the week, all that kind of stuff there. So hopefully you guys are enjoying that. Let me know about that video as well as this one here. Without further ado, I'm going to get going with the Week 5 power rankings for the NFL. As you guys know, we always start in reverse, so I go number 32 up to the first one. And I don't know about you guys, but I've had my teams be, not one of the top teams in the NFL previously before. So let me know, but I think it's pretty nice to see where your team might rank, even if it's literally 32nd or 25th or 15th or something like that, compared to just the top 10 list. And then if you're like, oh, we're having a good year, maybe we're 12th, maybe we're 13th or something like that there. But a lot of other lists leave those teams out. They only do top 10. No, I like really putting the whole list in there, and you can see where we're going from there. Also, in this week's power rankings, I also added in the plus or minuses from last week, so we can see kind of where these teams are coming up and down. Some big movements from some of the teams. Some of these things are maybe overreactions I had before. Maybe they're overreactions coming off of last week. And then some of them are maybe things like, players getting injured and stuff like that make a big difference. Like the Cincinnati Bengals, all right? So here we go at number 32 to start off the list. We have our weekly perennial number 32 team, the New Orleans Saints. Now, they did play their best game of the season last year so far. I did pick them to win their game this weekend, but then again, they're playing, one of the other lower-ranked worst teams in the NFL as well at home this weekend. So I have the Saints at number 32. That could change after this week's games. Number 31, I have the Tennessee Titans. Not much to change there. They're still at the same spot as well. Here's where we do have some change. The Cincinnati Bengals, I have them at number 30. That's dropped down 3 spots from last week's power rankings. Unfortunately, so far, it's just looking like it's not clicking so far with Jake Browning and the receivers, which is a little odd because he's done this before, literally in Cincinnati with those receivers. So I do believe it'll come around. The problem is the Bengals defense has already been horrible. I mean, they couldn't make the playoffs with a, all-world MVP quarterback in Jake Burrow. So, it's a tough one for the backup quarterback to come in there and to fill that as well. So Cincinnati Bengals at number 30. Number 29, I probably shouldn't have, ranked them as high last week coming off their victory versus the Falcons, but it was such a dominating victory versus the Falcons. Kind of seemed like they deserved it, but the Carolina Panthers are at 29, so they've come back down a ton. That's a drop of 5 spots on there. I don't expect them to win their game again this week, so I expect them to stay there. Or, there's not a whole lot left for them to go lower than that there, but 29 for the Panthers. At number 28, I keep expecting these guys to actually be better than what they are. They keep hanging in games. Really thought that they were going to play that game tight. They did. They should have won it if not for a blocked field goal. So I feel for them. Fortunately, it's another tough matchup for them this week as well. That would be the Las Vegas Raiders. They're at 28. They're playing the Colts this week, one of the hottest teams in the NFL. And again, the Colts really surprised me last week playing against the Rams, so it looks like the Colts are pretty legit there. But that would be a big step in the right way to get a victory in that. But you got to start actually putting together wins rather than just playing good against teams, right? So Raiders at 28, they actually stayed the same. No movement for the Raiders this week. The New York Jets are at 27th. They dropped down 2 spots there. Justin Fields got to stop turning the ball over. The defense is not terribly great like it was a couple years ago. So I expect the Jets to have another loss this week. And you got to start putting together wins, or else you're going to just be one of these bottom teams all year long as well. The New York Giants, a huge victory versus the LA Chargers. Now, all of a sudden they win that game, but they learn that Malik Neighbors, their number 1 wide receiver, is out for the year. They still have this rookie quarterback that just started, his first game. So they maybe had some energy, something else coming off, that change, putting him in there. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to go. He didn't really light it up on the scoreboard either, or put up the stats as far as a quarterback goes. So, they did move up 4 spots by beating one of the best teams in the NFL. But I can't move them up a ton, and I don't expect them to, I don't really expect them to kind of stay down here most of the year, even with the rookie quarterback, unless he really turns it on. A nice improvement for the Miami Dolphins. Looks like they are, finally were able to put together something, and then Tyreek Hill goes down, So without Tyreek Hill, this might be around the spot that they stay at. I still believe that they do have some weapons on their team at wide receiver, running back, and tight end, even with Waller coming back. I think Tua's underrated quarterback there. I think they have a really good offensive coordinator that's essentially their head coach. Defense is not fantastic, but, it wouldn't surprise me if they can put up some points and win some games throughout this year for sure. New England Patriots, really good victory for them. They're at 24th. They went up by 1 spot on the list. It gets a little tough in here to really make a lot of room up or down in this. I think there's a few teams that are really clearly at the bottom, and then a lot of teams in the NFL right now that are like in the middle, and then only a few teams that are at the top. Sometimes you could look at a season and be like, okay, there's 10, 14 teams that are all like Super Bowl caliber teams or something like that. Another 10 teams that are horrible and 5 that are in the middle, something like that there. This year I feel like it's a big disparity between the top and the bottom, and then a lot of teams so far in that middle range. And so the Patriots, even after a big victory, are only able to go up 1 spot. I think the Browns, I put them staying at the same spot. They are at 23. All right, so they didn't move for me up or down. I'm still waiting to see them if they can get some offense going, if they can stop turning the ball over. Again, they had a great victory versus the Packers just a couple weeks ago. They played very good on defense every week. Their defense is going to keep them in every game. Just because their defense is going to keep them in every game means that unless they do have like a ton of turnovers and some weird plays like they did versus the Ravens, they're probably going to lose a whole bunch of games, but be in all of them. It's going to be tough to move them a whole lot lower than here. Next, we have the 22. We have the Arizona Cardinals, and they would drop down by 4. Cardinals are kind of a wishy-washy team. Waiting to see Kyler Murray kind of put together a consistent year, without injuries, of course, and really get that connection going with Marvin Harrison Jr. Now they're out their top 2 running backs on their team. Defense is pretty good. I think they have a good favorable matchup this week playing in Arizona. That'll help them, but I'm not sure if the Cardinals are going to be quite the team that I thought they had the chances to be at the beginning of this year. 21, the Atlanta Falcons, they dropped down 1 spot. I know they even had a win last week, but, it wasn't like a dominating win. And I do think that I'm still waiting to see more for them. Also, another team kind of like the Cardinals, consistency is key. I want to see like 3, 4, 5 games in a row. I mean, you have a 17-game season. It's not too much to ask for 3, 4, 5 games in a row where you're good every one of those games, and not have a game like you just came off of 2 weeks ago where you got beat and you didn't put up any points. I think it was 31-0 versus the Panthers. I can't move you a ton up for one victory that you won by 1 score. After that, I have the Houston Texans. They are at 20. They went up by 1 spot. At least they had come and score some more points. Their defense, again, I think is one of the best in the NFL. So I think they definitely have still chances to go quite a bit up from there. I've been surprised about the lack of offense for them. So until I really start seeing more from their offensive side, I got to, kind of gradually move them up as they're maybe winning some of these games. So we'll see here how the Texans do coming forward here. After that, we have the Dallas Cowboys at 19th. They actually went up by 4 spots, everyone, for the Dallas Cowboys. I've been saying it all year long. The Cowboys are actually, I think, a much better team than a lot of people give them credit for. I think their defense is not very good, that's for sure, but I think their offense is outstanding. I think Dak Prescott is clearly an MVP candidate for their team. So it's going to be fun to watch the Cowboys play all year long. I hope they end up being some spoilers for, everyone but the Packers basically in the NFC. And I don't think I would really like my Packers to end up playing them in the NFC, because I think with one of those teams that are dominant on one side of the ball. Could be the Browns or the Texans. They could be that dominant that they could shut you out, or on offense they could be that dominant that they could shoot you out. And all of a sudden you're having a bad day or an average day on offense and you can't keep up with them, they can win. If you're having a bad day on defense or something like that, and the Browns score 13 points, I mean, literally that's maybe a bad day for, that's a great day for a lot of teams. But it doesn't take the Browns or some of these teams to really outscore you when their defense can be that bad, or it could be that good. So, anyways, the Cowboys went up by 4 points. They're at 19th. Look for them to possibly keep rising on this list. At number 18th, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars coming off of a really nice victory for them versus the 49ers. I think the 49ers really banged up, really kind of playing out of character, some weird interceptions and things like that there, batted balls, those kind of things there. Really helped them out get that victory itself. But the fact that they were in that game at all on the road in San Francisco, Santa Clara, is a big testament to them, and they did get the victory, so they went up by 1 spot there to the 18th mark. At number 17, the Minnesota Vikings, they dropped by 2 on here. We're going to really have to see, what the grade is going to be like on them once they get J.J. McCarthy back. At this point, I actually don't know if it's J.J. McCarthy or Carson Wentz is actually their best chance of winning. Really, J.J. McCarthy was pretty bad, was horrible 7 out of 8 quarters that he started off his NFL season with. So I think their defense is also one of the better defenses out there in the NFL. Maybe not as dominant as some of these other ones. I think they probably have the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. So we'll have to see there exactly what they're going to be like when they're riding this out, and what happens when J.J. McCarthy does come back. But I think because their defense is as good as it is, I think because they do have the weapons still that they have on the offensive side of the ball, they're still this kind of middle tier team so far waiting in there. Sneaking up 1 spot above them at 16, we have the Chicago Bears. They went up by 1 spot. I'm not sure if I said it, by the way. Vikings dropped by 2. Bears went up by 1 spot to the 16th spot. Narrow victory versus the Raiders. It's still a road victory and still a victory nonetheless. So, you didn't play exactly the toughest opponent in the NFL, but still an opponent that I still think is much better than what their record shows in the Las Vegas Raiders. You still did play them on the road. You had to hit a blocked field goal at the end to take this victory, but all those things still count, and they still count good enough for a team that I still think is one of the most talented rosters in the NFL, in the Chicago Bears, offensively and defensively, to be middle of the pack here. We're going to see for them to kind of, can they put it all together? Can they put it all together versus good teams? Can they put it all together versus good teams on the road? All those kind of things there. But a good spot for them so far here at 16th. At 15, we have the San Francisco 49ers. I still believe that the 49ers are going to be a playoff team. I know they do have the weakest schedule in the NFL this year, but injuries, just keep happening to this team. What is amazing, I made this ranking up before Thursday night's game, and they pulled it off. Again, not a huge surprise for me that they can pull off a victory over the Rams. Even on the road, those teams just play each other so closely anyways. I think division games are always tough like that. But what you have to see is, can they get up for the second game after that, or are they too banged up now after that, a week after that. So, it'll be interesting to see exactly where the 49ers are after this. And remember, this ranking here was after last week's loss to the Jaguars. So they're at 15th. They dropped down by 3 spots on the list here. I'm sure they're going to go up next week after that victory versus the Rams. At 14th, we have the Baltimore Ravens. And what is happening with the Ravens this year? Maybe I drank the Kool-Aid a little bit too much as far as a lot of people, what they were thinking about the Ravens and their roster. I thought they were a little flawed coming into the year. Wasn't sure as far as how good exactly their defense was going to be. Their offensive line as well, those kind of things there, how many total weapons they have. At wide receiver, I think Hopkins is actually looking really good. I think their offense maybe is looking a little better than I thought. But defensively, they're way worse, and they're way more banged up, and they got way more banged up this last week, on offense or on defense. And then on offense, use one of the best running backs in all of the NFL and Derrick Henry, you should be using him a ton more than what you are. And now Lamar Jackson is hurt. Now, Lamar's probably only going to be out for 1 week, but you just start adding up all these things, and it happens to every team. Almost every team has like that one down year, or just all the bad things happening. It happened to the 49ers last year with all the injuries they had. This might be starting to happen to the Ravens this year. They're my biggest change of the week. They actually dropped by 6 spots down to the 14th spot here in the power rankings this week, which helps this next team out a ton. The Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, you start looking at that AFC North, right? I mean, the Bengals are at 30. Let's see, you have the Browns at 23, and I don't think the Browns are going to contend for the division. I think they're just going to be a bad to okay team throughout the entire year. And the Ravens, if they just keep getting banged up or Lamar Jackson can't come back, the Ravens aren't going to be really much of a threat either. Meanwhile, the Steelers aren't like world beaters yet so far, but they're playing decent football. They're winning games. And so you start looking at their season, their schedule. Schedule's much tougher, second half of the season, but the Steelers could be pulling away with the division by the time it even gets to that spot here. So we'll have to see here again with the Ravens if they can really kind of come back and start getting their players back. Lamar comes back healthy, those kind of things there, and start making a run to make it competitive in that division. But the Steelers really having off to a good start, and they moved up 4 spots to the number 13 spot for me. The Washington Commanders are my next team. They are at the 12th spot. They dropped down by 2 on here. Again, some injuries on this team here. Something to always look out for is anytime you have those kind of a little bit smaller running backs or quarterbacks, especially the scrambling smaller quarterbacks, like a Jaden Daniels, and this is only his 2nd year. But is he turning into CJ Stroud, where the league figured him out, and all of a sudden he's not able to put up the numbers quite like he was? Is he just banged up? Did he just have a bad couple games? Those kind of things there. But he'll be coming back, and we'll have to see exactly where the Commanders are going to be like with him, running that offense here coming up. Defense, they're a good solid team. They have a really good solid roster all the way around. So I think they could be hanging in there throughout the year and maybe not running away with anything, but still being a playoff team that's there towards the end of the year. But they did drop down 2 spots in this week's rankings. At number 11, just barely holding out. I couldn't move them into the top 10. They did lose the game, and that would be the Indianapolis Colts. I really thought, who have they played? Who have they beaten so far in the league? I keep saying it, like, are they this year's version of the Saints from last year, where they just destroyed teams the first couple weeks and then lost almost the whole rest of the season? Well, they did lose, yes, but they were very much in that game, could have won that game versus one of the better teams in the LA Rams last week. So again, I wasn't able to exactly move them up. I think you have another good matchup for them. I think you're playing again one of the lower ranked teams in the Raiders this week here. But you're just able to start stacking up wins, and how you play against these teams, those kind of things there will matter. So the Colts stay put at 11. Moving up, leapfrogging them would be the Denver Broncos. I'm still have to see more out of Bo Nix, but I do believe that defense is legit. I think they also have a home field advantage there in Denver as well over a lot of teams. So I think they're moving up pretty good. They moved up 4 spots for me to the number 10 spots, and then we have the at 9 we have the Seattle Seahawks. They also moved up 4 spots. Seattle really good, I think, on all phases of the ball, offense and defense. And they have that, again, great home field advantage there in Seattle. I'm interested to see exactly how good they are on offense, how good Sam Darnold is away from Minnesota and away from, a great offensive coordinator up there. But we could be seeing them moving up further as well. Next after that, we have the Chargers. They dropped down by 4 spots after that loss to the Giants. One loss here and there, those kind of things, they will happen. And again, you did have to go from LA all the way to New York, and you had injuries during the game and this and this. Maybe you had a rookie quarterback you were playing that you couldn't really game plan for. I could put in a lot of stuff there. What worries me more about this team here is, again, their offensive line, and their best 2 offensive linemen being out. I think one of them's out for the year, if I remember right. That's going to be the one that's actually going to affect them more going forward next week, 5 weeks down the road, that kind of stuff there, if those guys are going to continue to be out. So, if those guys come back, they're able to pull it together, offensive line gets cohesive, They can still be a Super Bowl contender here. Otherwise it's going to be tough for them to compete for the AFC West and to make it into the playoffs if they keep getting banged up like that. Number 7, the Chiefs looks like they're coming along. They got Worthy back, I think, a week or 2 weeks earlier than I thought that he was going to come back. And then he came back, and, then all of a sudden, even when they were announcing that he was coming back, people were like, okay, is he going to be used kind of as a decoy? How much was he going to play? How many snaps was he going to take? And then right away, he's like in the game, going full bore in that game. So Chiefs with him on the roster, Rice coming back here soon as well. I think they're going to be a legit team. I think their defense is still good. Of course, they have Mahomes. Of course, they have Kelsey, all those kind of things there. So I'm starting to move them back up again. They're going to be a scary team if this team really starts clicking with all the pieces like they've wanted to be for the last year or two. So the Chiefs have moved up another 2 spots. They're back up into the number 7 spot. Then after that, we have the Tampa Bay Bucks. Now, they did lose, but they did put on a good fight. Could have maybe, won that game versus the Eagles. They were in that game for a lot of it. So they moved up 1 spot there for the Bucks. Good road test for them, again, going against Seattle all the way. The first trip pretty much in the NFL this year, going all the way up to Seattle for them. So that's going to be a good barometer for both those teams there. After the Bucks at 6, and the Bucks went up 1 spot. The Packers, they dropped down 2 spots. I keep saying it. I mean, I think the Cowboys played probably what's going to be their best game, if not their most anticipated game, the game that they're going to put the most energy into, at least out of the year. I think the Packers went in there maybe underestimating the Cowboys. They were even talking about it on the broadcast, how hot it was and how one team is maybe used to that. And the Packers obviously are from the north and from cold Green Bay. We can go into all those kind of excuses there as well. Fact of the matter is it ended in a tie. So you didn't come away with that win. The biggest thing that I actually liked from that game, I was saying that before that game, I want to see the Packers really try to kind of like air it out and try to score a whole bunch of points. I was kind of tired of seeing the Packers winning some of these games where they're scoring in the teens, or maybe even lost the game versus the Browns scoring in the teens or low 20s or something like that, and just thinking, okay, we're just going to manage this game and just have our defense play well and have our offense like not lose it. I want us to show that we can score 40, because there's going to be games throughout this year or through the playoffs that you're going to play like a Lions. The Eagles can score points as well at times. The Buccaneers. Let's see here. Who else is bringing up? The Bears can even score some points at times there. That's the Buccaneers, Rams, Lions. These teams that can really put up a ton of points, 49ers, really put up a ton of points at times, and maybe your defense is not having that solid day. So can you win a shootout, or is your quarterback and your offense have been so used to this game where you're trying to score 23 points or something like that you can't all of a sudden turn it on? So that was my biggest takeaway. I'm really happy that Jordan Love and the Packers did put up 40 points in that game. Now you just got to put it all together, right? That is what the Lions have been doing on some of these games, right? Where they're scoring 40 and all of a sudden keeping their team at 13 or something like that. That's where you got to get to. So again, they dropped down 2 spots. They have a bye week this week, so pretty tough for me to go up or down on bye weeks, but we'll see how the other teams play. Next up, we have the Rams. Again, this was based off of last week's game before Thursday night's game, but the Rams did pull out that victory last week. They went up by 1 spot. It gets tough here. There's not a whole lot of places to go. I still think the Rams are one of the better teams in the NFL. I'll cover this more next week, but I think, again, playing the 49ers who you're super used to and all those kind of things there can be tough for any team. So I'm sure they're going to drop, but we'll see by how much. And they went up by 1. The Lions went up by 3 spots. Here's your biggest riser in this, like, really kind of, top, 7, 8 teams here. Detroit Lions have been really looking good. Outside that week 1 game versus the Packers, they've been looking dominant. They've been looking like pretty much just like the team they've been the last couple years, where they can score a ton of points on you, and their defense is also still really steady as well. So, going to be interesting to see exactly where the Lions get to throughout this year. They're going to keep improving. If that first game was just an outlier on there, or if they play against really good defenses, or some teams throughout the year, if all of a sudden that's what they revert back to. Well, we'll see there. But for now, Lions at the number 3 spot. They moved up 3 spots there. At number 2, couldn't really move them anywhere from here. The Buffalo Bills played another good game. Didn't have to really do a whole lot, but played against the Saints and were able to pull away with that game just as expected. Didn't really, like I said, have to do a whole lot to really show what they were about there in that game there. So didn't really, wasn't able to move them up or down. And especially when the Eagles, like I've been saying all year, I mean, when you win the Super Bowl and then you get into that next season, until you start losing some multiple games maybe, even if you're not playing at your highest level, if your offense has literally halves where you get no passing yards, or having to win games by blocked field goals at the end, those kind of things, that the Eagles just keep winning. And so the Eagles still are at number 1 on the list. So no change at the number 1 or 2 spot on there. Also no change, just notice here, no change on the bottom 2. So bottom 2 and top 2 spots both stayed the same from last week. We'll see if anything from that changes going into next week. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like I said, check out my other videos on the podcast. For Sound Off, I am Mr. Sound Off. Have a great weekend, everybody.